staying safe. So today I was kind of working on a side project which involved a backend and a front end setup. So I'm thinking like probably I'll create a common scaffold, also record a video and share it on YouTube. So it's gonna be pretty raw. I'm not planned anything. So let's figure out it together, right? So it's gonna be a little bit of advanced. So if you're a beginner, may not be a right place, but if you like, stick around. Okay. End of the day, we're gonna just try to create a scaffold, which is gonna kind of have a front end setup and a back end setup, right? So I was thinking like maybe like we can have front end using white. It's like pretty fast. It's pretty good, and we might have a TypeScript Node.js backend, and the front end is going to be on React, obviously. So let me create a folder. Maybe I will call it as Fullstack template, right? The Fullstack template. Let me open that in our code editor using VS Code. Right, so let me just maximize it and just arrange them in a way that it's efficient for me. Now I'm gonna create two folder. Obviously, one is for server, one is for client. We are not going to do any crazy stuff like monorepos or something like that. I have felt like when you have just a server and a client, there is no need for you to have a monorepo where you have a package for server, you have a package for client. No, you can have a single repo, a single package JSON, and have all the server and client dependencies in the same packages. Okay, so I'm gonna initialize my package JSON. I'm gonna call it as full stack template 1.0.0. that's fine. Full stack template using React and Node.js. Alright, so there's no entry, no test. For now, no GitHub repository, no keywords. Let me keep it as an MIT license. That works fine for me. So we have a package JSON also right now, right? And now we need to let's start with the client, right? So front end is always cool, so let's start with the client. So as I said, the client is gonna require white.js. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first of all install white. Right, it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna install white, and after white is installed, we're gonna put our client inside this client folder. So I'm gonna create index.html for our front end. So inside the client I'm gonna create, I created an index, so let's rename it to index.html, right? So pretty normal boilerplate code. Maybe I'm gonna call it as React app, right? And I'm gonna have a root element for us to mount our React application, right? And we need a file for white configuration, so I'm gonna call it as white.config.js, right? So now the best part about white is that you can it gives you a lot of intelligence while configuring it. And so they have an interesting function in white called define config, right? So you can export default, the configuration, and the define config is going to provide you a lot of intelligence on how to configure the project. So the property here that we are particularly interested in is something called, I think, root, right? So the root path is where white by default is going to look for the index.html file, right? That's nothing but our current dir, so we can say it like dir name. So I'm not using process.current working dir here because what I mean is that I can use something like process.current working dir. I'm not using this because we will be running all our npm scripts from the root dir. So the current working dir for us, that in that case would be like the full stack templates root dir, not the client dir. But in our case, I want the root dir to be the client dir, so you can just use dir name, which actually gives you the folder name in which the file is. So dir name just works fine, right? With that said, let's install you know uh, React and React DOM, just like that. So let me install React DOM. I'm gonna have them as dev dependencies. Okay, so we have React and React DOM now, and we're gonna do TypeScript stuff. So I'm gonna install uh, also TypeScript, and with TypeScript we need types for React and uh, React DOM. So we must use it every time. So we have React DOM installed, the type definition for them also installed. Right. So what I kind of right now I can do is that I'm gonna create a folder for all my pages. I'm gonna have, so I keep all my pages of my front end in a pages folder. So, and we can have an app page is nothing but the index page kind of, and I'm gonna create an index tsx, right? So I'm gonna import React from React. I export default function. I'm gonna export an app component, and the app component is just, let's say, hello world, right? So we have a hello world app component. Now I need uh, you know index.tsx file, which is gonna actually mount the component into the DOM. Right, so I'm gonna again import React. I'm gonna import React DOM. Sorry. So we have to import React DOM, and I'm gonna mount it using React DOM.render. React DOM render is the first element to be the app element, so I'm gonna import the app, and then I can say the element it should mount on is nothing but a root element, the element ID, and I'm gonna get a root element. Right, so we have a decent setup already. Like we have app page, it's gonna be mounted into the root element using React DOM. Now it's probably the time to check whether my hypothesis works or not. Right, so for that, let us start writing some scripts. I'm going to remove this empty test script, which only is two. So I'm going to create something called dev client, which is going to start the client in development mode. So I'm going to use white, and I need to provide the config option because we don't have the configuration file in the root directory. /client/white.config.js. Yeah, so if everything is right, we should probably dev client. Where is our browser? I don't have a browser open yet, so let me just open a browser. localhost 3000. That didn't go, I think. Did we get any error? Okay, and does say that it loaded. Okay, I think I didn't import our script, so we need to import our script into our entry point, which is the index.html. So I need to use a script tag, script tag, and src is gonna be /index.tsx. And the important stuff that you shouldn't forget using white is that you need to specify module. And yes, we have React already up and running. That's what I kind of love about white, right? If it was Webpack, I would have panicked while writing a lot of configs or setting up the the HTML template, stuff like that. White has a lot of things out of the box. I just wrote a single line of config. Right. So I also want to set up React fast refresh with white. I think they have a plugin for that in white. So I think this is the plugin. Great. So all we need to do is just it's archived, so we need to use this one. That's fine. Okay, so I need to install this. So I'm gonna do, okay, let me open a new terminal. I say save dev because we are doing some build stuff. So development dependency. Okay, so I think I need to use 12. Usually I keep note 10 for work stuff, so let me change to 12. Okay, that should fix the warning. What did I install? Yeah, I installed the React Fast Refresh. Okay, so I need to just import this and provide it in the plugin. Right, so I'm gonna import it, plugins, and now IntelliSense in in build configuration. I have a hard time when doing stuff in Webpack because you don't get the IntelliSense over there while writing configuration files. So this is a great idea to put a function which is gonna provide you IntelliSense while writing build configuration. So React refresh. So hopefully if we restart our configuration we shouldn't see much change, but React Fast Refresh should be working by default. Great. So another thing I always wanted to have was, like, I don't want this React here. Does this affect it? Okay, it says React is not defined. But I do have the latest version of, I think, React is something should support it, but it's kind of a build tools kind of stuff. So I think we need to look for white stuff. Don't import React in white. JSX, maybe JSX without white. Yeah, without React in white. Okay, they are suggesting we do something called JS. Okay, JS factories for React. Okay. Okay, so you can use the ES build option to inject some JSX into it. That's nice. So let me try that out. So we have ES build JSX inject import React from let me change this to double quotes then. React. That's cool. Let me just quickly have some water. Cool. So this should kind of work. Let's try. Okay. Identify React has already been declared. Okay, which means I think I'm read. Okay, maybe here I'm redeclaring. Okay, so remove this. Okay, so the problem I think is if you kind of use the JSX inject, you should never be using input React in any place of AI because it kind of creates a duplicate import. Interesting. Cool. So we have our client already pretty much working. Now let's move on to our server. Right, so let me create a folder for server. Do we have a folder for server? We don't have it. So let me create I think we have it. Okay, so so we are gonna use server. So we are gonna use TypeScript for it. So I'm gonna create app.ts file. Okay, we'll probably use Express, right? So I'm gonna install Express. And and also need definitely need types for express, so I'm gonna say dev and types for express. Yeah, and also need types for node. So okay, so now I can import express from express, right? So I'm gonna create an app instance for it, express. I need to figure out which port it should run on, so I'm gonna say if it is in the environment variable, take it. If it is not node env, sorry, port, it should be port, or I can use 8080 port, that should be fine. And I'm gonna say app.listen on the port, and I can probably just console log, you know, express server running in process dot env dot node env, so we know in which mode it is running on, right? At port, or just specify the port, right? I actually like to specify the URL also, but HTTPS localhost, so maybe you can navigate it to that also. So now we have a basic server scaffold running, but how we are gonna run it? So I think we need to kind of do one more thing in our client and server. Since we use TypeScript, we need to kind of specify tsconfig.json, right? So I think I'm gonna reuse some of my existing tsconfig. So I have a tsconfig for a project, which I already have this one. I'm gonna copy this. I'm not gonna create it from scratch. So tsconfig.json, and this is I'm gonna remove that app specific stuff. Remove that. Also that. You can even copy paste this from a CRA app. That should be fine. So the root is this lib. Yes, fine. Everything's fine, but why it's complaining? It's not specified. Okay, so we need to specify a JSX thing here. JSX, it's gonna be React. So okay, so what does it say? What does it say? But current file is booting, consider adding import React instead. Okay, I think React JSX, does that fix it? Yeah, that kind of fix it. Okay, so we need to specify React-JSX, which doesn't complain about importing React. That's nice. Okay, so we have tsconfig working for that. Let's just quickly test it out. So I'm gonna probably add another script to package JSON, which says build client white build config client /white config.js. Okay, so we can build a client. We can run our client till development client. Okay, so client is working. So now we need a tsconfig for our server. So I'm gonna copy paste that, but we need to tweak it a little because since it's a server, it's not gonna be bundled. So one thing we need to change out right off the bat is that we need it to be CommonJS, because we are not gonna bundle it, so it's gonna change everything into request statements and module.exports. That's what we want. We can remove this JSX statement, which we don't want. And another thing I also want in this is that I want to out there to be test, because we're gonna compile this and put it in a test folder. right? So I'm gonna create another script here. I'm just gonna say build server. Let's just gonna build a server. So it's gonna be tsc. It's gonna use the tsconfig from the server folder / tsconfig.json. Right, so let's try that out. Npm run build server. Yep, I think that worked. So we have an app.js, so which is just pure JavaScript in yes, pure JavaScript that can be run from Node.js. So we can add another script now. Start server, which is gonna just say npm run build, because before running the server you always need to have a fresh build. So I always like to do that, and then you say npm to just run the server /dist/app.js. So I'm gonna say npm run start server. Okay. Okay, so npm run build server. That's what I need to specify here. Okay, so we have express server running in undefined because I think we have not specified the node env. So we can do something like this. We can say node env equal to development. Sorry, this is going to be production, right? I'm going to start the server. So env equal to production. But the problem that with this is that it's not going to run in Windows, because in Windows setting up the environment variables is pretty different when compared to Mac and Linux, right? So for that I love this, this library Mackenzie dots. It kind of provides you to have a cross-platform environment variable setup. So it's called cross env. You can just say, just prepend whatever you have with cross env and it's done. So you use macOS style environmental variable setup, and it's gonna kind of update it based on which environment you are on. If you are on Windows, it's gonna get changed based on this platform specific environment variable, right? So with that said, let me try again. Run the server. So we have it running now. Let's try out from the 8000 port. Sorry, we were running in 880, right? Wait a minute. I have some caching issues because of my previous project. So I'm gonna just go to this and say maybe 8081. Right, so I'm gonna say something like that. And okay, so I have done it wrong here. It's HTTP. So I'm gonna go to that. So we say cannot get that particular path because I think we have not set up any routing. So I'm gonna just say whenever you get this particular root URL response, just say response.send hello world. I think I did it right, but yeah, no. So let me just restart the server and check it out. Yep, we do get it. So now the biggest problem is we have to restart our server every single time we make a small change. So we need some kind of watch mechanism, right? So previously I used to kind of TS node, which is pretty cool, but for development and for running in production, TS node has a huge overhead. It is like TS node does not restart as quick as possible, and whenever you start a TypeScript based node project using TS node, the startup time is comparatively higher based on the size of the project, because it needs to parse the entire project, do type checks, transpile it, and then start it thing. And it also has a huge memory footprint when you run it in production. So I stopped using TS Node for development and production. Rather, what I do is that I just use TypeScript TSC compiler to compile it and also to run it in development. So one strategy that I follow is that rather than depending on TS Node, you can write a script called watch the server. So this what it's going to do is that it's going to watch the TypeScript changes. So you can say the project is going to be server slash tsconfig.json, and then you're going to say add a watch flag. So when you do this, the magic it's going to add is going to say you say run watch server. It's going to watch it. So if you go ahead and now make some changes like double quotes, it's gonna again recompile it and update the app.js. So if you can see in the app.js, you should see double quotes. Yes, so it's compiling whenever it's watching, whenever you make that file change. Right now we need to also kind of restart our server whenever there are changes in the disk.js. So the easiest way to do that is to use nodemon. Right, so you can do npm install save dev nodemon. Right, I use nodemon all the time. It's the best tool out there. So you use nodemon and you can do something like you can say like dev server. Right, then you can say something like nodemon. And then you can say you need to look for the file in server slash this slash app.js, right? And I want to add a cross env here, env node env gonna be development. Now what I can do, I can have two things. I can have a window which is running the watch server, so it's gonna watch for file changes, and I'm gonna have another server which is gonna start the nodemon. So I can say dev server, and it's gonna start the dev server at localhost 881. So if I go and make some changes to our project, let's keep it so besides we can look at it. So let me say I'm gonna go to this, I'm gonna say edited, something like that. If you look at it, TypeScript immediately recompiled it and the server was automatically started with nodemon. Right, now if I go and reload it, you can see we have the latest changes. So this is actually one way that I always follow, but only problem with this is that you need to have two separate terminals running all the time. Right, so it's a little bit cumbersome. So one methodology that you can use to avoid this is something like this. So let me close this terminal. You can use something called concurrently, which is also another cool library which lets you to run two npm scripts parallelly. Right, so I can use npm install concurrently as a dev dependency, and I'm gonna go back to my package.json. So I'm gonna change this into something like start server nodemon. Right, so this is one thing I want. Now I'm gonna create another script called dev server. Here I'm gonna say concurrently kill others. So what this kill others flag does is that it kind of like you are running two parallel npm scripts. So if any one of the npm script fails, you kill the other scripts that are running in parallel. Right, so let's say your TypeScript watch fails, you like kind of it fails means it kind of exits the process, then you stop your nodemon process also. Suppose your nodemon process exits, then you say okay, exit the TypeScript watch process also. So you can use a shorter notation to run an npm script by using npm colon and the script name. So I'm going to start with watch server, and I'm going to say start server nodemon. Right, so what we can do is that we can prefix this over here rather than all that. Right, so now I can say npm run dev server. Now it's going to start both the process parallelly, but failed. What happened? This command not found. Start server Okay, so I need to say npm colon run. Okay, so it has started the server. It's also watching for the TypeScript changes. I'm gonna go to the app.ts file and say edits, and it should have restarted it. So let's see if that. Yep, it got restarted, and Node1 also restarted our server process. So that's how we can run, two parallel npm scripts using concurrently. Pretty cool. And but we still have one small problem with this that I can think of right now. Let's say I stop this and I remove our server/dist, right? So this TypeScript watch file, which is gonna kind of transpile it into this folder, it's gonna take some time, right? And we are starting node1 parallel, so node1 might not be able to find our server/dist/app.js file immediately, so it might error out. Let me explain the same to you. Like, I have removed the disk folder. Now if I start to run our dev server, it should most probably fail. Yes, you can see that node1 failed because it couldn't find a file in the server/dist/app.js. So one fix I kind of think we can do it is, it's gonna be a little bit hacky, but one thing that we can do is that before running concurrently, we can run the build script once, and then we can run the concurrently. So this should kind of fix the error. So we have a my bad again. So it says build server. We say run dev server, and yeah, now boom, so we don't get any error, and even if the disk folder doesn't exist for the first time, it's gonna start, right? So yep, that's pretty much how we can set up the backend server and the client. We have not yet done one thing that I always want in my projects is the prettier setup. Like we always want your projects to have a consistent coding format. So for that, what we are going to do is that we're going to install a bunch of utilities. The first thing I want to install is Prettier. Yeah, Prettier does all the stuff, and all these dependencies are going to be dev dependencies. Prettier I want pretty quick, which kind of prettifies all your files, staged files before you commit. And we need Husky, using Husky 4. Husky 5 has some breaking changes which I kind of don't like it, so I stick with Husky 4. So we're gonna install all this. Okay, so I think we don't have a Git repository already, so it says like it couldn't set up the Git hooks. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna initialize it. I'm gonna update the configuration to use my personal account, email, right? So now let's try that again. Try the same command again. Should kind of succeed now. Yeah, I did. And we need few files. We need a Prettier RC, and we also need a Prettier Ignore to ignore unwanted files. So yeah, we have Prettier Ignore, so I'm going to ignore the node modules. Okay, so I think we have Git repositories including node modules also. That's why it says that the repository is too big. So I also have another good utility called Git Ignore. You say Git Ignore on the project that you're working on, and it's going to create all the ignored files that are Git Ignore with all the ignored files that by default that project should have, right? And then we have this kind of sadly doesn't include the DS store files in macOS, so I always kind of add them at the end. So we say DS store, and we're gonna save that, right? So we can have something like we can have git add FNA. I think I did set up wait, I have installed husky but I have not set up husky and prettier yet, so I'm gonna add a new node script called prettify. What it's gonna do is that prettier quick, and it's gonna say staged. And now I need to add the husky hooks. So husky, it requires another property called hooks, and you need to specify which hook. I'm going to use the pre-commit hook, and the pre-commit hook is going to be prettier, sorry, it's going to be pretty quick, and you can use an option called stage which will prettify only the staged files. Right, I can rather use the encase which is created and prettify, and probably I'll do my first commit. Git out of me, git commit, code initial commit. Okay, so I think I made a mistake here, so it's pretty quick, or prettier quick. So right, so let's run it. I made a mistake. Git commit, because I didn't check in the package.json, right? So one other trick that I kind of use is that, let's say you have a project and you're doing the Prettier Setup for the first time, you can use something called Prettier Write option with all the files you have in your current folder, and it's going to respect your Prettier configuration file and the ignore file, and it's kind of check to update only these files. And while doing Prettier update, I want to always ignore the the package.json also, right? And I'm gonna kind of pick up my existing prettier configuration. Don't want to do it again, so I'm gonna pick up this up, and let's copy it and let's paste it. Okay, so with that said, I'm gonna just amend it up, amend the commit, and that should do it. So yep, that's it guys. So we have pretty solid front end and a back end setup. Probably restart my VS Code, that's why it's not able to show me the proper dev photo. My VS Code again. Yep, so we have a proper client, and we have server which runs using TypeScript. We use NodeMon, dev server which restart automatically based on whenever you update the files, and we also have a client which is built on React, and it uses Vue.js. So hopefully you liked it, but if you feel there are some places we can improve the scaffold, feel free to comment, or maybe maybe tweet at me. Whatever you wish, and thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.